everyone, it's Chaz Large here with another video for you, and this particular time it's a bit of a special video. It's a combination of different bits of video. I'm going to do it in different bits. It's now Wednesday the 28th of December 2022, and I'm going to show you what I got for Christmas. Yes indeed, this box I got for Christmas. Now I knew I was going to get this. It's a very kind gift donated by a member of my family. Thank you very much for that. And it's part of a computer system. I'll give you that as a clue. And I also had to order some other bits and pieces to go with this. And the whole idea of this build, apart from having a computer, a good working computer at the end of it, is to be able to repair another part of a computer which my current computers can't make work, or I can't test it with. So hopefully once I build this computer up, I'll be able to test the bit that I'm going to fix. Does that work out? Okay, hope you got all that. Rewind if you don't. Anyway, let's get on with this video of looking at what's in the box. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in with my new camera. This is something I bought for myself a little while back, and there we are. Look at that, it's a manual zoom camera. So let's have a little look in this box, and yes, those of you that recognize this will recognize what this is. This is an AMD Ryzen 7 3800X processor, 8 core 16 thread processor, 4.5 gigahertz maximum boost, 3.9 gigahertz base speed. Discrete graphics card required. Okay, well that's the bit. The discrete graphics card is the bit that I'm going to need to fix to make this work. But what I've bought to go with this is a new motherboard. So let's bring this out. Now this, as I said, was very kindly donated by a member of my family, my stepson Martin. Thank you very much, Martin, once again, who has built himself a new Super Fandango computer, and he says, well, do you want to have this one? Now he bought this in January 2020, so it's only 2 years old. So I shall pop some paperwork there to one side. There's a little instruction book. He's kept it all nice and neat. Thank you very much. But this is the beastie down the side here. Here it is, the Ryzen 7 3800X processor. Hope you can see that on there. Perhaps it might be better if it's on that camera. Oh, pedal, let's go to the bench wide. Perhaps you'll see it more clearly on that one. There we are. Let's get the light right. There's a lot of light in here, so and I hold it up the right way, tilt it down. Oh, anyway, you can see it. I'm not going to take it out of the box, not just yet. But in the box also, Martin has very kindly included the heatsink, which has got a fan on it as well, which is, I believe, an RGB fan. I'm not sure if it is or not. I think it is. I think it's an RGB fan. It looks like it's got enough cables for RGB. Yeah, I think it has. So there's the clips, etc. There's the base plate. He's cleaned that all off nicely for me. Thank you very much. So we will get to fit that into a new motherboard. So next thing we got to get, let's pop this back in the box. Oh, do. Keep that nice and safe. Pop that over there. Let's get the other part, which has arrived. There it is. Haha. And to go with this, now I'm not a gamer. First and foremost, I'm not a gamer. I use computers as tools. I don't play games. Well, except games on my old Sinclair Spectrum and BBC Micro and Electron and so on. Those are the kind of games that I like. I'm not up to speed on these new super games, online games and all that. So don't ask me those questions, because I don't know. There's plenty of people on YouTube that have got channels dedicated to gaming and overclocking and all that. I am not interested in that. I understand it, but I don't know how to do it. So don't ask me those questions, please. Anyway, this I bought just prior to Christmas, and thanks to our good old posters strike, although this was ordered 10 days ago on a 48-hour delivery, it arrived today. Thank you, post. Wonderful. Hope everyone else got their post after Christmas. I'm still waiting for letters and cards that were posted 2 weeks ago. You know, Christmas cards. So anyway, here's the motherboard, and with the motherboard I also purchased a enemy M2 card for the operating system to go on, and 16 gigabytes of Kingston Fury RAM. That's the twin SATA cables that go with this, and there's the rest of the motherboard in there. So I'm going to take it out of here, and just to move the box out of the way for the time being, just so we have a quick little look at this. I'm not going to spend too long on this particular bit because I'll be taking it out of the bag a bit later on. But if I leave it in the bag, it'll be all awkward to see. Let's just open the bag up, just so you can see what the motherboard looks like, as I'm sure those of you who are interested will want to see what the motherboard looks like. And I'll just grab hold of my little earthing clip before I touch anything. And just make sure we are nicely statically protected. When I come to do the whole thing, I should put the wrist strap on. There it is. What a lovely piece of work that is. What a lovely piece of work it is indeed. So this is a Gigabyte motherboard, and it looks really super, and I'm sure it will do the job necessary. It's got DVI and HDMI on board. It's got USB 2 and 3, USB 3.2 on there. It's also got USB 2 there for mouse and keyboard, and it's even got a PS2 socket for mouse for keyboard if you want to use that. But it's also got a system on it that Martin told me about called Q-Flash, and what that means apparently, and I need to do a little bit of reading up before I do this, is that you can get the new BIOS for this motherboard, pop it into this socket marked BIOS, the white one, like a USB, but you plug it in there, you press this button I believe, and it will automatically update the BIOS, and you don't have to have a processor installed for it to do it. It does it all through the onboard system. So that'll be worth looking into, because I don't know what version of BIOS this has actually got in it. And we've got various other sockets, and we'll look at all the motherboard sockets soon enough. Let's get it back in this static bag and save it for a bit later on, because what we've got to do now is we've got to find a chassis and power supply for this to go into, and as luck would have it, another friendly donation was made to me a little while ago. Is it that way around or that way around? I think it's that way around. It goes in there. It looks about right. So let's put that back in there, pop those in there and those in there. And that donation was an old Windows 7 PC in a chassis, which I'm now going to get up onto the bench. So I'm going to put these two out of the way. Well, as you can see, I've not got a PC on the bench. I've got the parts of the new PC in there. I did actually have the chassis. I put it onto the bench, and I made an absolutely lovely video of me taking it to pieces and getting the old motherboard out and getting it all ready to go put this motherboard in. And then I realized that the board I was taking out was a mini ATX, not a full-size ATX. So consequently, this motherboard wouldn't have fitted in the chassis. The holes were all in the wrong place and it was too wide. So if I managed to get it in there, I wouldn't have been able to put the panels back on. So as a chassis, that's no good. I have got another chassis which is over there, that's used for other things. That's got a full ATX motherboard position on it, because I only bought it a little while ago to build a test rig for various video things that I do. Anyway, that chassis is going to be taken apart, this board is going to go in it, and that other board will go in. What I'm going to do now is, having got that other board, the other chassis out with bits and pieces on, I've retrieved from it the front panel with some connectors, so at least I can plug this slot into this motherboard and test it, and I've got the buttons to press and so on. I've got the power supply out, which is a G7 Power Extreme 680 watt power supply, which should be more than enough to fire this beastie up. So I'm hoping that I should be able to just make it work on the bench enough to test this out before I get the chassis out and put that in. So if I'm building a new computer, this is what I like to do, is to build it on the bench first, on the motherboard, just to make sure that everything's working. Otherwise, you put it all in there and then you realise, oh, I've got to do something, and you've got to take it out and so on. So having it all put onto here on the bench, it just makes life a little bit easier for testing and working on it. Let's think, what have we got to do first? We've got to put some RAM into it. We've got to put the SSD in it later on. That's a secondary thing, because we just want to basically boot it up and see if it will work. Now, the wonderful manual that you get with this B550 Gaming V2 board doesn't say a lot. It gives you a layout of all the connectors. So you can visit their website. They give you QR codes to get the Gigabyte website for support lists of CPU, memory modules, etc, 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 in order to do it. So the product package does not include a driver disk. After you install the operating system and enter the desktop, please follow the on-screen instructions to download and install the Gigabyte App Center, and then proceed with the installation of the drivers and applications. When end user license agreement dialog box appears, press accept to install App Center. So installing the CPU, please follow the guidelines before you install the CPU. Make sure the motherboard supports the CPU. Let's connect up what we can connect up before we fire it up. So we know we can plug in the power supply. So that will go into there, and that fits nicely. So support the board. Whenever you're plugging things into a motherboard, if you can, support the board before you press the connector down. And if you've got a little clip on it, make sure that clip clips into position, because lots of faults occur when that connector is not down fully. The extension connector should also go in and be nice and tight. That seems to be loose. Have I got to put that one in first? Yeah. That does. It goes in first, that little bit. Okay, so lesson learned. Not come across those before. I'm sure I have, but don't remember it off the top of my head. That's the power supply. Okay. Right. Done a little bit of research, gone onto the Gigabyte website and downloaded everything, BIOS, drivers, utility software and so on, and there's a lot of bits and pieces in there which is all going to be useful. Got that all stored on my NAS drive. Checked out the connections. Power supply requirement was a minimum of 500, but I got 680, so that should be okay. Checked all the connections, made sure they all plug in okay. Check the wiring for the front panel connectors, etc. Got those plugged in. So that's as far as I've got, having gone through the manual. So the next thing is to actually do the physical connection of the two important things, the memory. So we're going to put the two memory cards in and the processor. So as I'm trying to get it all there, what I've done here is I've set my other desktop camera low down on here, because apparently, according to Martin, putting the heatsink on top of the processor is a little bit awkward. So that's why I've got the other camera just there, just for that purpose. So let's put some memory in. Now apparently the BIOS, I've only got 2 sticks of memory here, and it should auto detect quite happily. So let's just open these. Oh, mustn't forget, put the old earthing wrist strap on. Make sure I'm properly grounded. So 2 lots of RAM, and I've got Kingston Fury Beast, as recommended by Martin, DDR4 dual channel desktop memory kit. So and apparently the 2 desktop memory, we've got A1, A2, B1 and B2. So A1, A2 is, it says on there A1, and then this says A1, and then A2, B1, B2. So I'm going to put them both into the A slots together like that. So these should just pop straight in. Making sure I don't drop them. Make sure I've got them around the right way. So that's the wrong way, so they go in that way. Now I could have gone a bit all whiz bang and bought RGB memory chips, but to be honest, once it's under the bench, I don't see it. I'm not one of these that like a light show on my computer. It works or it doesn't. I mean, the computer I'm using for this is under here, and I can't see it until I pull the damn thing out, whether it's even switched on. So anyway, that's that. So that's the RAM is in. Now we need to get Mr. Processor in. So we take Mr. Processor out. And Martin has done a great job keeping that absolutely pristine. Thank you very much again. So we have our AMD Ryzen 7 3800, and we've got one with a little let's go to that camera, and then you can see on the processor you've got one corner which has got like a little shiny bit. That's the indicator. And then if you look along the legs and get them in the light right, you can see if any of the pins are bent. Now Martin, naughty boy, you've got some heatsink compound in between the pins there. Not a great idea. Technically speaking, that shouldn't make any difference, but I have got a handy dandy toothpick here, which hopefully I can just gently ease that out with. So it's probably not going to make any difference. So it's always worth, no matter where you get your parts from, if you get second-hand parts, it's always worth just double checking, making sure the pins are nice and straight. And by looking along the lines of the pins, if you can see them like a nice shiny pattern like that, that usually indicates that the pins are nice and straight, which they appear to be. So we have the corner here on the processor socket. There's a corner there with a little marker on it, so that's the corner where the processor goes. But before we do that, we release the clamp. So the clamp is all the way up. The processor should just drop in nicely. You should never have to force it in there. So if you're putting a processor in the socket, never force it. Just make sure it drops in. If necessary, just lift it up and down so it goes in and out. Keeping just a gentle pressure on it. Pull the lever down and latch it in place, and that processor is then in place. So then we need to have some heatsink compound. I use MX4. That's the wrong camera. MX4, that's what I'm using. Apologies for the focus, I should have checked the focus on that, but basically you should really only need just a splodge, sort of like an X shape, just enough to give it enough spread around on there. Shouldn't need to coat it all over there, because as soon as you put the heatsink on there, that heatsink is going to squash it into position. Okay, so out with that. Now the heatsink has got two clamps, one there and one here. This one here has to clip onto one of the clamps already in the chassis, and the other one has to go over there and then be tightened. So make sure you get the tightener in the down position rather than the up position when you try and put it into place. So it's all got to be down like that. So that should go there. So we just want to make sure we've got this around the right way. It shouldn't make any difference, it will go either way, but you just need to make sure that you hook that over there on that side and push it down. So I'm going to put it in this way. That was my fingers slipping, it wasn't anything breaking. Come on, more beastie. Now let me just try and show you what I'm trying to do around this side with this camera. I'm just going to focus this, bear with me. There we go. So what you've got to try and do is get that clip over that lug. There it is there, look. Right, that clip's got to go over that lug. So I think if that was me, that clip's gone on that side all right, but it hasn't gone down far enough. I'm just wondering whether it just needs a little bit of a lever down. It really is being a bit. There it is. Okay, so make sure that that lever is clipped into place there, and round on this side you just need to bring that clip over this hook, and then we pull the tightener up on there. So that's now locked the heatsink on top of the processor. Yeah, good job. So it's clipped on there nicely, and it's clipped on there nicely too. So that should be good for that. So there we are, that's good. Now the fan on this particular one has got two connections. This one goes into USB, so that must be for the USB fan RGB, and I bet I know what's going to happen now, is because the fan connector is here. No, that's system fan. Where's processor fan? Processor fan, HDMI, LED, CPU, 4 pins. That's got to be that one. Yep. And there's an indicator. Where are we? Yeah. Go to the other camera and focus it again. Bloody awful camera. So on this connector for the fan, we've got multiple wires, and we've got a little off-center slot on there, and then on the same on the system fan there, it says LED CPU. So that's just triple check. CPU fan, system fan is up there, CPU fan over here. So the CPU fan actually is here on this side. Now, is that the right connector for it? Yes, that looks to be. And the other one, CPU fan optional. Okay, let's connect that one on, because this is the actual fan connector. that draws current, and this one must be the USB. I guess there is a booklet that goes with that CPU. There it is. And the processor. Does that give details of that fan? No, it does not. I'm assuming right. Okay, that's all to do with the processor. So this says USB. So if that goes to a USB header, which it seems to go to. So there's a USB header there, there's a USB header there. Let's plug it into there. So let us make sure, try and get my feet out the right way. We seem to have everything connected correctly. CPU's in place, RAM's in place, CPU fan is in the CPU fan socket. The other cable that's presumably for RGB plugs into there. There's going to be a bit of software to control that, I guess. I haven't got a graphics card. I'm going to plug it into the HDMI socket on the motherboard just to see what we get. Now I've got my test monitor here, so I'm going to switch to the wide camera. Right, and my little test keyboard, which I'm going to plug into there. Useful little keyboard that I bought many years ago. And it's a keyboard and a mouse controller all in one, so it's really handy just to have it. And you just plug in the little adapter and we'll turn that on. So it's fully charged. I charged it up earlier, so at least we've got a keyboard controller if needed. So I think we are ready to power it up. So mains power on, CPU power on. Any lights on the board? No lights on the board. Let's turn it on. So it's turned on. And we've got a light flashing on there. We've got no display coming up of any kind, so I'm guessing this is where this CPU does not work without a dedicated CPU card in here. Fan's working, so we've got nothing come up, so let's turn it off. Okay, so we've turned off. So we've turned off, so this is where we need to plug in a proper graphics card, isn't it? Because obviously it doesn't work with the onboard graphics. This is what I was expecting, to be honest. Right, here we are with this motherboard with the CPU in, and as you can see, I've now got an image on my monitor. If you look closely, you'll also see that I've actually got a different graphics card in. Let's go to that one and pull that over and have a look. Okay, this is a graphics card which I've had around for ages. The other thing that I hadn't done properly was the memory slots. I'd populated incorrectly. If we look at that little diagram on there, it says A2, B2 is first. So that's where the two memory chips should have been. So I put those in there. So we've now got on the screen that we've got version 2.2.1271 of the BIOS. New CPU installed. Press Y to reset the FTPM. If you have BitLocker or encryption enabled, The system will not boot without a recovery key. Press no to keep previous FTPM record and continue system boot. FTPM will not enable in a new CPU. You can swap back to the old CPU to recover TPM related keys and data. Oh, it says basically the top line, I missed that bit, FTPM PSB NV corrupted or FTPM PSB NV structure changed. Yeah, I'm sure there's something there. So basically, press Y to reset the FTPM. If you have BitLocker or encryption enabled, the system will not boot without a recovery key. Well, I haven't got a recovery key because I haven't got a CPU, so I'm going to press N. And hopefully, there we go. Clear CMOS information. And BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure your BIOS setup as needed. Press OK. And there we are in the BIOS as we should be. So we've got CPU fan running. And it tells us the system temperature is 22 degrees. The CPU temperature is 37 degrees, so the cooler's working. The CPU voltage is correct. Oh, it's all in the green, I suppose. It tells us that we've got the right gigabyte of RAM in it, BIOS version F15, etc. So basically, I think we're okay. So all I've got to do now is to come over here. So I can load the optimized defaults. I suppose that would work. Smart fan, help, English, and I don't know. So I'm just going to do save and exit. Are you sure? Yes. And hopefully that should be getting us back to normal working conditions once I've put a chip in and installed the operating system. Anyway, I think I'm going to shut it down. Now, the next thing I've obviously got to do is to get the case out with the old CPU, the old motherboard in, etc. Take that out, but before I do any of that, I've got to make sure that that old power supply that's in that other PC, which I think is fairly good power supply, but it may only be 550 watts if my memory serves. So at least I know the motherboard's okay, at least I know the CPU's okay. And we should be good to go to rebuild the other computer when I've got that sorted. I may have to buy a new power supply though, because this power supply hasn't got the extra to power that GPU, and I do need it because I need that GPU to be tested and working and give me, because it's an identical GPU, the one that needs fixing. So I've got to fix the other one. That's obviously needs that extra power as well. Whew, what a night. It is now 3 minutes past 11 in the evening, and I've had enough, so I shall say cheerio for now. I'll be back later. Right, it's the next day. I've had a good sleep and I'm ready to get going on the next part of this project. And if you remember from the last part, it was getting hold of another PC with the right power supply, etc. I'll try and sort of get it in shot so you can sort of see it. I should have moved the cameras about. Anyway, here's the old PC, and I've checked it out. It has got the right appropriate power supply to power a decent graphics card. So because limited space and so on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut here and cut to the point where I've got the new motherboard mounted in here, wired up, so we can move forward on the next part, which is the graphics card. So see you after the next cut. And here we are. Now I've managed to take the old motherboard out of the chassis, fitted the brand new motherboard in, tidied up the cables as best as necessary for the time being. One of the little things that I like to do in terms of let's get the right camera there, is to use cable ties to finish off, but whilst I'm sort of sorting out where the cables go, I tend to use the tie wraps, and it just holds the wires out of the way. When I'm ready to actually lock it down, then I'll put the cable ties in. So if you get any devices that you buy or presents or whatever, and they come with a mains cable or a cable wrapped up with a cable tie, keep hold of those wraps, because they can come in handy for doing this sort of thing. Right, so it's all plugged in. I've triple checked all the connections. On this chassis there is a DVD drive and a hard drive which I was using for that. I'm going to put in an M2 drive for the actual operating system. We'll do that in a minute, but first off I want to just check and see if it still boots up and everything is okay. I've got HDMI output to my monitor this time as opposed to digital, which I know works on that socket. I just want to make sure the HDMI works. So let's get some power into the beastie. And we switch on and on. No magic smoke. Hey, so far so good. Power switch on. Oh, cool. And we've got the Gigabyte display coming up there. Might also want to see, not that it's particularly wonderful, but on the front fan on this there is LEDs. So I don't know. I mean, these fans tend to come. When I bought this chassis, it came with an LED fan for the front. So that's there. So I've got a system fan at the back, I've got the big fan at the front, I've got the cooler fan at the front. Now, the big problem that I concerned myself, or tried to concern myself with last night, thinking about it, was this error message which says, press Y to reset the FTMP. That's your, I can't remember what TPM, trusted something module, whatever it is. Put it in the comments, I know. Anyway, it comes up with that, and is it going to come up with that every time I switch this computer on? I don't like that idea. I think what I'm going to try and do is to clear down the BIOS. So I'm going to power it off. Now I've got a BIOS clear jumper on here, but having looked through the manual for this CMOS clear, use this jumper to clear the BIOS configuration, reset the CMOS values to factory defaults. To clear the CMOS, use a metal object like a screwdriver to touch the two pins together for a few seconds. There we go. That's the answer to that. So let us get a screwdriver in there and touch those two connections together for just a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good enough for that. So now we should be able to switch it back on and see what the BIOS does now. So hopefully if this trusted platform module, etc., and it's still coming up with that. Yes and no. I want no. Oh, let's turn my keyboard on. No. So obviously it didn't seem to clear anything. So I'm going to try one other thing. A little trick that I learnt from Graham, who runs Let's Build Computers, and his preferred method of clearing the BIOS is to remove the backup battery, which is what I'm going to do now. Leave this out for a little while, go make a cup of tea. So there's the backup battery, that's out. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. Right, here we are again, quite a few minutes later on. Let me just turn the camera down so you can see my balding head as I sit there. I just have to sit down, the old legs aren't what they used to be. Anyway, let's put the backup battery back in to the machine, and we're powered on, power on there, and we're power on here. Let's see what that does in terms of this message. If it doesn't disappear, I'm going to have to just live with it and try and work out how to get by it. I'm sure somebody's come across this. If you have, then put a note in the comments. At least it might help somebody else if it doesn't help me. By the time I've done this, I'll probably have fixed it. Anyway, right, and yes, we've still got it. So press Y to reset the FTPM. If you have a BitLocker or encryption enabled, the system will not boot without a recovery key. Do you know what? I'm going to just chance it and press Y. Okay, so it should now go into there. If we press delete and the del key, we should be able to go into the BIOS setup. Right, things are going on and off. I guess it's doing RAM training. Let's just leave it. Oh, I should have pressed delete then. Reboot. Right, let's do another reset. Okay, and then press delete. Weird or what? Perhaps it's, like I say, it's a wireless keyboard, so perhaps it needs a wired keyboard for delete to work. Right, BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure your BIOS setup if need be. Okay, so we're now into the BIOS. As we can see on the screen there, let's just turn that around a little bit. And obviously we can now do various bits and pieces. So it tells us it's identified the two drives that I've got. Everything seems to be okay on that, so I should now be able to move my mouse over, do save and exit. Are you sure? So I don't really know enough about how this motherboard BIOS treats BitLocker encryption and so on, but I've not got BitLocker on here that I haven't installed or set it up. I don't think it's got a trusted platform module built into it. There's a socket for TPM on the board, so maybe if once I go to install Windows 7, it will say, well, sorry, can't do that. Anyway, that'll be the next thing. We're obviously past this error message, having pressed Y to erase it and so on. It's obviously got to that point. So we're now going to turn it off while I find a Windows 7 install key. Back in a bit. Right, I now managed to find and update my Windows 11. I think I said Windows 7 earlier. Going back in time, obviously. Windows 11 is going to go onto this PC, and I've updated my install flash drive with the latest version. Plug that in. I've also decided to, rather than to put the camera onto the monitor, I've connected the output straight into my capture device, so we'll be able to see what's going on directly. So I'll leave it like that, and so you can sort of see a bit of me as we do this. So powering it on, and it should hopefully go straight into a boot of this drive, because it's be looking for other devices. Now I can see there's a cursor come up. Now if it doesn't, then I've obviously got to go in and change the boot device. But I'm hoping that it will go straight into a Windows install drive, and it is. So yeah, that's good. That's lovely. That's what I like to see. So Windows 11, Windows UK, United Kingdom, etc., etc. So let's click next. Install now. Now, if you've never seen Windows 11 install before, this will take you through it, and it will take you through various things. Now, in this particular instance, I haven't got a Windows 11 key just yet. I just want to make sure it all works. It's an option that you can do when you're installing on a new computer. You can actually install the whole of the operating system and have 10 days free use of Windows 11 without having to activate it by an install key. Microsoft pretty good like that. So the only caveat is that it will ask at some stage to set up an account, and if you've got the internet connected, so because when it first starts to install, it will try and check for updates. If you don't have it connected to the internet, you will be able to install a local user account. So at this point, I'm going to select I don't have a product key, and I'm going to tell it I want to install Windows 11 Pro, and go next. And it now should find what drives we've got once I've accepted the agreement. So if I tick there, it should do it. Mouse pad on this is not brilliant. So customize install Windows or keep files, install Windows only advanced. So I want my 500 gig unallocated, so that's the drive I want to install. That's the M2 drive. So that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully that's now doing it. Ah, there we are. We are in Windows 11. Yippity doo dah. App Center. Store, restore, more apps from your other PC. Well, I haven't changed PC. Would you like to download and install? Ah, yes. Now, it did say in the manual for this motherboard to install the App Center. Yes, let's do that. And it looks like we're nearly there. So let's accept this acceptance once again. Odd the way that's working, isn't it? There we are. But we've never installed this motherboard before, so please restart your system to complete App Center. So okay, restart now. So that's power off. Those color bars, by the way, they are from my capture device, my USB HDMI capture. That's why you see those color bars there, in case you wondered. So here we are back, and we'll log in again. And App Center, there we are. So obviously it just didn't quite. Let's move it over there. So now it should be automatically checking for updates and installing. So recommended installation is 11 items. Let's go with that. So all of those are ticked. Obviously it's quite a handy little device or application. Why it's popped up the Windows Update screen, I don't know. I didn't do that. But it's obviously downloading and installing these. Now, I'd already downloaded these just in case onto my NAS drive, so at least I've got a backup of all of these things. So it's installing the Easy Tune, and the Easy Tune, Martin tells me, is the way to tune up the BIOS and the speed, so I can increase the speed and so on if I need to. Not something I plan to be doing anytime soon, but you never know. We'll wait and see. Interesting. Now, just whilst we're here, I'm going to do Windows Run. Have I got a Windows key on here? Yes, I have. Windows Run. I'm going to type WinVer and OK that one. And it's going to tell me what version of Windows 11 I've got, which is 22H2. Perfect. That's the latest one. So I've marked that on my install disk, so I know when I come to do an install again. Right, Microsoft Windows, so we can get rid of that. So let's just stick it on here and see how we go. Right, I shall go and make another cup of tea and leave that doing that. So I shall catch up with you in a bit. Well, there we are. That's the installation of a second-hand Ryzen processor onto a new Gigabyte motherboard and setting it all up. Hope you've enjoyed this. The second part of the video I hoped to show you was the repair of a graphics card, which unfortunately, having given it some further inspection, has actually got a hole burnt through the multi-layer board. So it's beyond repair, so I won't be following up with that. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a task editing all this together. I've got a new editing package, DaVinci Resolve, which is absolutely brilliant, but it's mind-blowing what it can do. And learning it in such a short space of time has been a little bit difficult. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one as soon as I can get something on the bench to fix. What with the postal strike delaying absolutely everything, things are so far behind. Spare parts I've been waiting for months are still on the way here, apparently. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Like and subscribe. That's the usual phrase, isn't it? If you enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it, and I'll see you again soon. Cheerio.